Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 9 o'clock, it's Sunday evening, and this is Lockdown Live Sessions. Now, just going to wait for a few more people to come on air, on the live feed, sorry, and then we will start the show. One viewer, hello, that is Ollie. Good evening, Ollie, how are we doing? Hope you are well. We're just waiting for a couple more people to get back to come onto the live, and then we will start the show. So I'll obviously reiterate this when we do the show, but this live tonight does come with a bit of a sensitive warning. Tonight's episode is all about mental health, so there are going to be some quite frank and detailed discussions from a couple of people tonight based around mental health issues and based around kind of their experiences with mental health issues. So if it gets too much for you guys, there is your warning. Good evening to all of you guys that have just joined. For those of you that didn't get that, this is episode 3 of the Lockdown Live Sessions that I am doing over the next 7 weeks. Tonight's episode does come with a bit of a warning. We are going to be having some frank discussions with various different people about mental health issues and about various different mental health stories. So I just wanted to get that warning out there because we are going to be having some very sort of detailed discussions, and I wouldn't want anyone feeling uncomfortable off of the back of those even. So we've now got 6 viewers. So I am 7 viewers now, sorry. So I am going to start the show. So coming up on the show tonight, as I've said, we have got a lot of information about mental health. I'm going to be putting some advice and support lines in the comments at the end of the show, which is something I'll touch on later. We've got some statistics. We've got a guest that is going to be telling us all about her experiences with becoming a mental health first aider. I will be telling my story later in the show, and hopefully finally a bit later on, kind of towards the end of the show, we're going to have Mr. Luke Morris, who's going to give his discussion on sort of everything that he's been through with mental health and how mental health is handled in the UK. Good evening, Dixie. How are we doing, my lovely? Good evening to everyone out there as well. I was just saying how we're going to be having some frank discussions about mental health. We're going to speak to Luke Morris about his experiences with mental health. I'm going to be telling my story, and we're going to be putting some statistics out there that were all taken from the Mental Health Foundation England, just to highlight just how serious it can be. But first, before all of that, I just wanted to say what an amazing show we had last week. We had Mr. Glenn Lawson on, and we were talking about nationalised and localised lockdowns, so quite a controversial subject at this point in time, particularly in Leicester. We were talking about the benefits and the differences between localised lockdown and nationalised lockdown, and kind of whether nationalised lockdown should have ended earlier, whether localised lockdown should have happened in general, and all things in between. It was a fantastic interview. So Glenn, if you're watching, I just want to give you a massive thank you. And also Tyler, who gave your views on lockdown, particularly in Leicester, particularly localised, from a young person's perspective. So I want to thank you massively for that as well. What else? And as I've said, coming up today, we've got a load of different stories about mental health, and we've got some statistics, we've got some some advice and support. Of course, a lot later in the show, at the end of the show, we've got my top 5 film and TV of the week, which is a pretty big corker this week. By the way, guys, sorry if I am repeating and if you've been on from the start, because we've had a few people join, so I just want to kind of get people up to speed. But without further ado, we're going to crack on with the show. Now, before we get into all the mental health stuff, I just want to put out there, obviously, as some of you guys may have seen in the news, there has been some pretty nasty news about the Glee actress Naya Rivera, which a lot of people are saying are conducive to mental health. There's a lot of theories going around. There's a lot of pictures and hysteria from the police about all of that, about what's happened and how she drowned, whether she hit her head when she drowned. There's been a lot of conspiracy theories, but I just want to say, kind of on this show, that whatever's happened, we just want a safe and recovered, either as her, as Naya, hopefully alive, fingers crossed, or if it is fatal and she has very sadly died. I kind of want that closure for her family, so I just wanted to throw that out there because it is quite a sad and tragic subject at the moment, kind of on the news and worldwide. So I just wanted to kind of put my say in. But I think now what we're going to do, because it is now 9:05, so for once I'm actually on schedule. Wow, it's amazing. So we're actually going to go through a few mental health statistics today, and on tonight's show it's obviously the running theme. So I wanted to start off with a few different statistics. So I'm just going to get those up because there is a lot of them. Now these are all taken from the Mental Health Foundation England website. They are quite historical. They are from 2017 because they only publish a report every 3 years. So these are quite historical facts, but having done a bit of research on various other different sites like Mind, etc., they are still, the kind of figures are still sort of comparative, and they are still quite high. So 1 in 4 people every year experience some form of mental health condition. Now, mental health, there is a lot of different conditions. It's a very broad spectrum of things, which is why we're having a bit of a generalised conversation about it tonight. Because if we had a conversation about every single mental health condition there was, we would probably fill 5 shows. So we are gonna revisit this in episode 6 in 3 weeks' time, and we're gonna have a little bit more of a look at the conditions. But tonight we're gonna have a look at the generalisation of it. So 1 in 4 people they experience a form of a mental health condition every year, which is quite scary, really. Because if you think the average family is 4 people on average, and that's 1 person in every single kind of on average family that has a mental health condition. And mental health is responsible for, in the working industry, for 72 million lost working days, which is people that have a mental health condition that's so severe that actually they can't go to work. And across the UK, 72 million working days are lost every year thanks to mental health. People who identify as LGBTQ+ are more likely to think and have suicidal thoughts and tendencies than those who don't. Obviously, being LGBTQ+ is a stigma. It's something that actually it's quite a lot to deal with. It's quite heavy for some people. It's quite heavy for them, quite heavy for their families, and it can bring on quite a lot of mental health issues. And that is why the statistics are how they are, because it's been proven and evidenced that people that identify as LGBTQ+ do have a higher rate of mental health conditions and, very sadly, suicides and suicidal tendencies than those who aren't. And talking about various different communities within society, psychosis, which is another form of mental condition, is more common in the black and ethnic minorities group. Now, I couldn't unfortunately find a reason for why that was, but that is quite a strong statistic, and it just highlights that different mental health conditions can hinder and affect different communities in different ways. And one of the leading causes of mental health illness, and it is a mental health illness in itself, is depression. It's one of the leading causes worldwide of disabilities, and it is a major contributor in coronary heart disease and in suicides. So it's actually a lot more debilitating than people think. It's very common. I think a lot of people either turn a blind eye to it. This is people that may not suffer with a mental health condition in the way that some people do, almost turn a blind eye to it and underrepresent it. And sadly, as I've said, it's one of the major contributors in suicides, because people just get that low and they really can't find a way out, and depression wins. And that's something we want to try and fight against. And going on to that, this is a fact from 2018. On average, 16 people a day in 2018 took their own life, which equates to 6,154, sorry about that, numbers mixed up, 6,154 people that year, and it is estimated that between 10 and 25 that number actually committed, not committed suicide, sorry, actually had those suicidal tendencies and thoughts. And it's really shocking when you look at it like that, because it just goes to show just how scary having a mental health condition can be. Now, we're obviously I'm going to tell my story a bit later on, and we're going to hopefully be speaking to Luke a bit later with regards to his story around mental health. And a little bit later in the show, we're going to be speaking to Kim just after the break. We're going to have a 2-minute break today at about 9:30, just because Facebook likes to cut me off about 45 minutes in, so I don't want to cut off right in the middle of an interview. So I'm going to have a quick 2-minute break at about 9:30, and then we'll come straight back on, and we will be speaking to Kim, who is a qualified mental health first aider, and she'll be telling us a bit more about what that's like, and a bit more about what's involved in the course, and how we as a community can help people and advise and support people that have mental health conditions. I mean, I've got some more facts here. The reason that they are on paper is because they are in graph form. So as I've said, depression, these are self-reported experiences. So in 2017, people that actually came out and said, yes, this is what I have. I suffer with this mental health condition. 43% of people suffer with depression out of those that self-declare. And a lot of those actually can lead to substance misuse, so alcohol and drugs, because you get so low and you can sometimes find solace in other substances such as drugs and alcohol. And mental health is one of the poor mental health is one of the lead causes of alcohol and drug dependency. It's one of the causes of alcohol drug dependency. And I'm going to give you a final fact before we move on to my story, which will be next. One of the highest mental health misdiagnoses is anxiety and depression in women particularly, but actually what they really have is endometriosis. Now that's a fact that I'm going to give her a shout out. I got off of the lovely Rosie Johnson. And obviously endometriosis is it attacks the women. It releases quite a lot of endorphins, and endorphins isn't the right word, but quite suppressant hormones that people will diagnose as anxiety and depression, but when they're actually suffering from what could be quite a fatal disease, condition, an illness. So it's a very common misdiagnosis, and we're going to be looking a bit more at misdiagnoses a bit later on in the show, in one of our interviews. So we are now at 9:15. So for the next kind of few minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be telling you guys a bit about my story, and a bit about where I started kind of with my struggles with mental health and where I am now. So we're looking at a span of kind of 2016 right the way up to 2020, which is obviously the year we're in now. So my mental health struggle started in February 2016 over the breakdown of a relationship. I kind of put it down to just being a little bit low, not feeling myself, and gradually they got worse. The feelings got worse and worse and worse until really, actually, I thought, there is something wrong here. So I went to the doctors, and actually what happened was they prescribed me with tablets. If I remember rightly, there was sertraline. We're going to be looking, as I said at the top of the show, in episode 6, we're actually going to be having a bit of a deeper look into mental health, and in that show, we are going to be looking at the various different types of treatments that there are available for people with a mental health condition. Yes, I was put on to sertraline, which I have actually been on since, which I'll go into a bit in a minute, and if anything, it actually made me worse. My mood swings got worse. I became a lot more argumentative. I became very sort of, not physically aggressive, but in my sort of mannerisms, my personality, and it just turned me into a really horrible person, really. And this is going right the way through to 2017. So I sort of came off of the tablets in mid 2016. thought I was okay. Thought I was getting there. I was, you know, stronger than I thought I was. And then roll on sort of 2017, I had another bit of a relapse, and actually um, I started getting really low again, really low, and managed to actually work my way out of that. And it was thanks to my best friend, who I know is watching. Because of him, I sort of managed to talk my way out of that. And then I met my ex partner. I'm not going to talk much about, but I met him in the August of 2017, and actually for those 2.5 years, I wasn't on antidepressants right until the very end because I had no reason to be. At the time, he kind of brought out that happiness in me that I didn't actually need to have tablets. I didn't need to have kind of therapy, and I thought that I was actually all right in myself. Um, Fast forward now, this was 2017, all of 2018, and fast forward now to 2019, at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, when the relationship actually started breaking down. I was getting lower and lower. Um, I then found out that actually I was being cheated on, and because of that, I wasn't on tablets at this point, but I found out that I was being cheated on. Because of that, I went and took a load of sort of home remedies, so to speak. I can't remember what they were at that point. Loads of home remedies, and got quite ill. And that was sort of around that was around December 2018. It was codeine. It was codeine actually. That was what it was. That was I took quite a lot of codeine and ended up in hospital. So that was in the December. That was just after Christmas in 2018. And I thought that would have been the kick up the backside that I needed. I thought that actually, you know, I can fight this. I've done this. I've been in hospital. I can fight this. I can get through this. And I could for kind of 6 months of 2019 when I had a massive argument with my ex-partner, sorry, and he then went and stayed with who I assumed to be a friend, which was when, and it was only 5 days later when he asked to move back in, because I'd forgiven him for the first time, that actually I realised that that friend is someone that he had slept with, but because of the fact that he'd gone and he'd told me that he was leaving, the night that he went, because I was back on search leave at this point because I really wasn't myself. So kind of in the July of 2020, I went back onto search leave and I was on it for just under a month. And then, as I've said, in August, this incident happened. This person went to stay with who I thought to be a friend, and on the night that he went to stay, because he told me that he was leaving me, I unfortunately took my second overdose, which was sertraline, and didn't actually end up in hospital. It was horrific. It all came back up, and I refused to go to hospital. I even lied to the paramedics when they came to the door to say that I was absolutely fine. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to go into work at the weekend because it was Easter weekend. It was the summer bank holiday weekend, and I didn't want to cancel. So by the time I'd actually gone into hospital, I was told that because the medication had left my body, there was nothing they could do. Anyway, he came back 5 days later, absolutely fine. And I started noticing in kind of October last year that actually, because we'd met someone that happened to be this person's ex, that my ex-partner cheated on me with, and he was quite friendly, really nice, larger than life, really bubbly, and absolutely fine with me. And always said to me that if Ollie and I had split up because he knew we were going through a rough patch, he wouldn't tread on my toes, etc, etc. And it wasn't until the end of October, beginning of November, that I started noticing that something wasn't right. He was coming around every day. Ollie wasn't telling me that my ex-partner wasn't telling me that he was coming around every day up until the last minute, even though it was my flat. And this carried on right the way through until January of this year. And right the way through until January this year. And then he left, and I took what was probably my biggest overdose yet. And I'm not proud of any of these, and it was 32 paracetamol and a quarter of a bottle of wine, and I ended up quite ill in hospital. I was in hospital on a drip for a day and a half. I was trying to flush it all out of my system, and that was the turning point, really. That was the kick of the backside that I needed to say, do you know what, you can't keep doing this, you're going to destroy yourself. And 3 days later, I actually met my now partner, who I met online, and then 2 weeks later we decided that we were going to get together. And since then, he's actually been a very big success story in my mental health. Since then, I've become so much happier, and knowing that actually I've got someone that cares and someone that really wants to look after me. And I've not had a relapse since I've been low. I've had arguments with people, but I've never actually had any relapses where I've thought, you know what, this is it. And that, as much as it's down to me, is also down to my partner. And for that, I want to thank that person. I'm not going to name any names, but I want to thank that person for kind of being by my side through all of this, because he has really, really helped me out. And mental health really is difficult, and mental health really is difficult. And the general misconception is that at some point the poor mental health kind of goes away and is almost not kind of spoken about. And actually that's not true. Once you kind of realise you have poor mental health, you can do whatever you can to sort of try and get that better and get on that road to recovery. But it is always there in the back of your head. And although I am now the happiest I've been in a long time, I can stand here and I can say, do you know what, yes, I do still suffer with a mental health condition, and it's okay to talk, and it's okay not to be okay, because that's exactly what I want to try and get out. I want to try and get out that actually it's okay to be okay. It's okay to talk. And, if it wasn't for my best friend, my partner, and my support network, I probably wouldn't be even doing these shows. I've always been quite a confident person on the exterior, but I wouldn't have had the confidence on the interior to do these shows, especially now we're in week 3, and now we're, sailing towards the halfway point in this series. Because my brain would have told me not to, my brain would have told me I wasn't good enough, and actually working with my support network and my partner, my friends, my best friend, I've learned that actually I'm good enough to tackle anything, and I can stand here and be strong and say, actually, yes, I've got a mental health condition, and no, it doesn't define me. And kind of on the end of that, because we're actually already at 9:25. So we've only kind of got really another sort of 5-10 minutes of me telling my story. So guys, if you've got any questions that you want answering off the back of my story, if you want any questions you want answering off the back of my story, then please feel free to drop them in the comments, and while I'm talking I will pick them up and I will answer them for you. I do want to give one shout out. Where is it? Abby Marshall. Hi Callum, you are so strong for telling your story. Thank you very much for that, Abby. I think that it's really important to tell my story, because I want to empower people. I want to show people that actually there is that metaphorical light at the end of the tunnel, that although you may feel like a mental health condition really just attacks you, really goes for your brain, really tries to make your life as miserable as possible, and there is always going to be that part of you that is going to suffer, unfortunately. But actually I tell my story because I want people to know that although that's present, it's okay not to be okay, number one. It's okay to talk, number two. And actually, it doesn't have to define you. Never mind what the doctors say, never mind what the nurses say, never mind what the kind of professionals say. Obviously, they are there to help you. But ultimately, whether a mental health condition defines you or not is down to you. And it takes a strong person to sort of stand up and fight that head on, but it takes an even better person to try to succeed. And I like to think that from where I was as a 19-year-old lad in 2016, standing here at 23, you know, at the start of following my dream and, you know, presenting, putting on a show for you guys. And yes, I do it in my whole way. Yes, you know, I'm quite restricted to what I can do because of the fact that we are in a lockdown. You know, I still enjoy doing these, and if it wasn't for the experiences I had, I may not even have considered doing this. So yeah, that's a bit about my story. So if you guys have got any sort of questions that you want answering, any statements you want to make, Oliver Sutton, you couldn't have said it better, Callum. You should always be the best version of yourself, and I couldn't agree more. You know, there was a time daily where I actually woke up thinking the complete opposite, that I was the worst version of myself that, you know, I could ever be. But throughout kind of the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, it's taught me that actually you need to strive to achieve, and you need to kind of fight through that barrier to achieve what you want to achieve. And actually, that's a lot easier said than done, and it does take a very strong person to do that. But I do that, and I strive to achieve. I strive to kind of be a better version of me because I want to be the best version of me, you know, and I want to kind of chase my dreams. I want to follow my dreams, and doing something like this, although it's not much, and we kind of average between 10 and 15 viewers a show, you know, it's a start. You know, we're on episode 3 of season 1 that may not have even come to you if I wasn't in the position that I am now. And actually, this is me becoming the best version of myself by following my dream. And I want to say as well, guys, thank you very much for the love spamming. Like, the love that I get from you guys as viewers means a lot to me, and it emphasises why I do what I do, and why I sort of put on a show for you guys, why I stand here for an hour every Sunday night chatting about things that actually people wouldn't chat about, particularly live. You know, we've hit some hard topics. We've hit, you know, being gay and religious, we've talked about Black Lives Matter, we've talked about lockdown, we're talking about mental health tonight, and actually I wouldn't have had the confidence or even known where to start in broaching those subjects if it wasn't kind of you guys steering me along, giving me the support every week, the messages that come through my inbox on a weekly basis saying, you did a really good job, and really loving the lockdown shows. You know, that's what spurs me to do this, and that's what helps me to continue to be the best version of myself, because I know that there are people that care, and I know that there are people that actually want to see me do a good job. So I want to thank you guys for that. But we are now at just coming up to 9:30, so I am going to take a very quick 2-minute break, just because in about 15 minutes Facebook will cut me off, and I think last week actually it cut me off at just over 40 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of a break now, just a couple of minutes, and I am going to end this live feed, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight back on live, and we're going to get on with the rest of the show. But before I do go, coming up we have Kim, who is going to be interviewed about her role as a mental health first aider, how taking the course has benefited her and her life, and any advice that she can give to people suffering from mental health conditions, and to people that are friends and family of those suffering with mental health conditions, as to how they can sort of get better, how they can help their friends and family to get better and to recover from poor mental health. And I'll also be giving you a top 10 tips of ways that you can improve your mental health, as well as a lot more. We've got Mr. Luke Morris being interviewed about his story at about 20 to 10. We've got my top 5 films and TV of the week, and at the end of the show I'll be telling you what's coming up next week, and we'll also have the advice and support lines in the comments. So I will see you all in 2, and yeah, I will see you in 2.